How's it going, everyone? We are talking about Formula 1 today because the Bahrain Grand Prix is coming up. It will be in 2 days' time. FP1 and FP2 just happened, and I was shocked. And that is why I'm talking about it. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to all the Patreon members, as always, for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, comment down below, hit the like button. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you're not already, and all that good stuff. Now let's get into it. I've been excited for this Formula 1 season. Maybe not as excited as other seasons, just because I kind of thought I knew what was going to happen, since last year was the first year of the new regulations. Second year into new regulations. It's not gonna be all that different usually. I mean, that's usually how it is. It's just more of a enhancement from the season before. And then Fernando Alonso showed up. And now I'm very interested. So essentially, if you don't know what's going on, the Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso, Alonso's new team, leaving Alpine to go to Aston Martin, looks really good. And it's not terribly surprising, because in preseason testing, the Aston Martin was pretty good. Even some experts thought they could kind of pit Mercedes into like maybe third in the constructors in terms of speed overall in the first few races of the season. But this practice session from Alonso and Aston Martin is pretty stellar. And here's the reasons why, you know, I'm really excited for this. Number one, it's Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso, I think people forget how great Fernando Alonso is. Like, he is at the level, maybe even, you could argue, better than certain legends in Formula 1. He just hasn't had maybe the dominating ride that Sebastian Vettel had at Red Bull from 2010 to 2013. Or he hasn't been in a situation like Lewis Hamilton with the Mercedes, and that's how Hamilton becomes a 7-time champion. Since Alonso kind of, you know, was done carrying Ferrari during their you know, not the best years, and still was able to take that Ferrari and compete for championships, and unfortunately miss out. But once, you know, he joined McLaren, that was kind of it, right? McLaren was awful, and then people just kind of didn't give Alonso the new ride, because Red Bull had their drivers, Mercedes had their drivers, and Ferrari, obviously, they had Alonso before, but, you know, they had their drivers, and those are the three best teams throughout, I guess, the modern Formula 1 era. And so people just, I guess, forgot that Alonso is one of the most talented drivers in the field. That's what casuals do, I guess. I mean, they forget that Fernando Alonso is one of the best drivers in the field. When I look at actually pure driving talent, I personally have Max Verstappen at number one. And then, like, you know, with Vettel retiring, I have Hamilton at 2 and Alonso at 3. But Hamilton and Alonso, to me, are really, really close. Like, I think they're very, very close. I don't mean to disrespect Lewis Hamilton at all. 7-time champion, over 100 race wins. I don't mean to disrespect him. I just personally believe in Formula 1, the car matters a lot. It's not just, these aren't equal cars, right? And so you can't really, just because, you know, Hamilton was in that dominating Mercedes. I mean, from essentially 2014 to 2020, I mean, that car was absolutely ridiculous, right? And so that's how he gains a lot of those race wins. He, of course, is incredibly talented, but is he like levels and levels and levels above Fernando Alonso? In my opinion, no. I think the driver talent between the top guys is much closer than people think. Like, between Vettel, Alonso, Verstappen, you know, even you want to go a little bit further back, Schumacher, Hamilton. I think the level between those guys is, you know, the difference level is very little. I really do. I mean, we're talking, you know, just hundredths of a second between them. Some guys have better racecraft than others. Like, I think Verstappen sometimes still struggles at racecraft compared to Lewis Hamilton. I think Lewis Hamilton's racecraft is absolutely fantastic. I think it's better than Verstappen's, but Verstappen has been developing it. And now I think now that Verstappen has the fastest car, you're seeing him develop the ability to conserve tires or hit, you know, consistent lap times, where when Verstappen was younger, it was just pure, like, he was just pure pace. And Hamilton also had pace, but Hamilton's racecraft was able to beat him. And now that it's a little bit different, you know, Verstappen has the faster car. It's just, you know, it's how do you beat Verstappen? Well, in FP2 today at Bahrain, Fernando Alonso topped practice. And it's not just about the pure pace. The Aston Martin is very close actually to the Red Bull in terms of race pace. I would maybe very close as a stretch. We still have to see what Ferrari is doing, because Ferrari have not really shown anything, both in race pace and in qualifying. But you would expect or think, knowing that it shouldn't be all that different from last season, that Ferrari should be very close, and maybe they're not showing their speed and they're pulling maybe a little bit of a Mercedes sandbagging tactic, and they're just not really showing what they have. So qualifying tomorrow is going to be very, very important. But Aston Martin compared to Red Bull, listen, I was not thinking I would ever say that in terms of Aston Martin being compared to Red Bull. If you thought we're going to say that, if you're thinking that 3 weeks ago, that's not what anyone was thinking. It was Red Bull. Yeah, we expect them to be fastest, but maybe Ferrari can come back and deliver a stellar car in the early season, and maybe they could keep up with development throughout the season. But that Aston Martin is close. I mean, it beats out Red Bull currently in raw pace, just off one lap. But we'll see, if that's going to keep in qualifying. But with race pace on a full fuel load, first 10 laps of the race pace, Aston Martin was right there with Red Bull. It seemed like as you go a little bit further on into the race run, the tire wear for the Aston Martin would fall off a little bit. So Alonso's lap times were about 2/10, 3/10, 4/10 behind Verstappen's race pace lap times. But to even be 2 to 3/10 behind the Red Bull 10 laps into a run for Aston Martin is fantastic. I mean, that is in competing territory. They are competing. They can compete with Ferrari. You would have to argue they are ahead of Mercedes. Mercedes have shown nothing. They've really shown no improvements compared to last season. I think towards the end of last season, you saw Mercedes really improving. But Mercedes had to work so hard throughout the majority of the 2022 season to try and develop and catch up, that I think they might have suffered and ran out of time maybe a little bit in the development of the 2023 car, because it looks like they have taken a step back. I still think right now it's looking like Red Bull. And then you really have to see, the big question tomorrow is going to be, what do Ferrari have? Do Ferrari, do they have the raw pace? Do they have the race pace? And if they don't, you could legitimately see Fernando Alonso. I don't know about Lance Stroll, because Stroll's carrying the wrist injury, so he's not really up the pace right now. And even if he was healthy, I don't think Stroll can compete with Alonso. But can Alonso beat out the Ferraris? That's going to be the main question I think that we see tomorrow. How close can he be to Red Bull, and can he beat out Ferrari? I think no matter what happens tomorrow in qualifying, I do believe Alonso and Aston Martin will be faster than the Mercedes. I think that will happen. But will they be able to compete with the Ferrari, and how close can they be to Red Bull? That's going to be the main question. And it's genuine. This is so surprising. It's fresh, it's new, it's exciting to have someone as talented and as great as Fernando Alonso to have a good car again. And it's just a surprise, because no one really expected the Aston Martin to do this. And we've seen the proof right now in free practice 1 and 2 with race pace and qualifying-esque runs, that there is pace in that Aston Martin. There is pace. Now it's just a question of what can Ferrari do, and will they be able to rev it up? And maybe were Red Bull also holding back on power? Was Aston Martin showing everything they had, and in reality they're actually 5, 6, 7 tenths behind? Which, even if they are 7 tenths behind, that's still an improvement compared to last season. So, and I think that's worst case scenario. I actually personally believe Aston Martin tomorrow and Fernando Alonso are going to be about 2 tenths behind Red Bull in qualifying. I think they are right around where Ferrari will be. That's where I believe they're going to be. And that is absolutely fantastic, in my opinion, for the spectacle and for the season, at least early on, and then whatever development happens. Because we all saw Ferrari had the fastest car for the first few races last season, but they didn't keep up with the development. Red Bull caught them. Red Bull passed them, and then Verstappen's talent just comes through. So if you want to beat Verstappen, you have to have a better car, and B, a very, very talented driver. I think if you give Verstappen the fastest car at this current moment, I don't think anybody touches him. It's just that's I think Verstappen's that talented. So guys, I'm going to leave it up to you. What are you expecting for qualifying tomorrow and for the race on Sunday? I might even make a race review. I'm just really excited for this race coming up. in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Please support this video. I like talking about F1. So if you guys support this video, hopefully I can make more of these. Maybe I could turn Sundays into double race reviews with, well, I mean, Formula 1 doesn't race as much as NASCAR. NASCAR is literally on every Sunday, but, you know, hopefully I could maybe do double race reviews with Formula 1 and NASCAR. But this is the main storyline heading into Bahrain is do you think Alonso can compete with, I mean, I don't want to, I know the title of the video is saying, you know, compete with Red Bull, but like that's like a pipe dream. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but what about Ferrari? Like can Alonso get on the podium tomorrow? And that would be crazy. That would be really, really cool if it can happen. We just got to see long-term race pace. What will the hard compound tire do? Because all the teams were saving those hard compound tires. It seems like that's going to be a very popular race tire. So will the Aston Martin be better on the hard compound tire, or will it not? You know, we didn't really see any of that in practice. So it's just going to be really, really fascinating. And especially with the qualifying session tomorrow, it's going to be great. I'm just really, really excited for it. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think that Aston Martin has capable of with Fernando Alonso? What do you think about Perez, Red Bull, Verstappen, and all that? And how do you believe Ferrari? Do you think Ferrari are sandbagging a little bit? What about Mercedes? Mercedes just feel nowhere. They're just floating. Like it's kind of a little bit sad. They seem like in the same situation that they were in last season, where you don't really see them getting on the podium because they're not faster than Red Bull or Ferrari. But now, if they're fourth in line in terms of if the Aston Martin's actually better than the Mercedes, that's worse than last season. So yeah, it's a little bit scary for Mercedes in terms of they need to get that rolling. Obviously McLaren not really competing that well either. They look like they've taken a step backwards as well. So what do you think about all that, how the teams line up? Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you guys tomorrow for another video. Take care of yourselves, enjoy the rest of your day, and peace out.